Of a strange light in the skies above Southern California tonight.
Stan Monitz was photographing the moon in Laguna Beach tonight when the light streaked across his shot. Social media lit up with reports of sightings.
A major earthquake with a magnitude of 7.3 on the Richter scale was reported in the Atlantic Ocean to the southeast of Argentina on Friday. According to an observatory in Germany, it occurred about 1,500 miles east of southern tip of Argentina. The German Research Center for Geoscience said that the earthquake struck early on Friday and the epicenter was near the South Georgia island.
Good evening. An earthquake measuring 5.8 on the Richter scale has struck just off the Queensland coast. Families from Cairns to Rockhampton felt the tremor that lasted for up to 30 seconds.
2:30 p.m. and a normal day at work in Mackay gets a shake-up. The magnitude 5.8 earthquake strong enough to send goods flying from the shelves at this IGA in Townsville. The quake, the largest in the state in 20 years, struck 70 kilometres off the coast of Bowen, but tremors were felt from as far north as Cairns down to Rockhampton. It sent people running from hotels, offices and pubs.
I was sitting on the lounge with my son and it just shook and shook, heaps of times. It was awful, horrible.
I was just doing some cleaning and all the glasses started shaking on top of the coffee machine.
On Hayman Island, guests were evacuated to the tennis courts. More fun than drama. Mackay Mayor Greg Williamson was mid-interview when the quake struck. Listen to the building rumble in the background.
What we're doing with the first principles is an earthquake.
By 5 p.m, there had been 6 aftershocks, one of them caught on camera on Hamilton Island.
It's a national conversation, but at the university level, University of Iowa is going to be taking a lead.
More than 40 volunteers working throughout the spring, reviewing hundreds of bathrooms on campus, taking note of number of stalls and signs outside. They found 147 existing restrooms have just one stall inside.
But they just don't have consistent signage that says this is gender neutral restroom. All of them are single-use restrooms, and we're just going to be saying this is a gender-neutral restroom. You can use it.
Here is a look at the new signs they're working to put up.
Anyone can use this regardless of gender identity or expression.
I'm told the new restrooms could be a draw for future transgender students wanting to come to the University of Iowa.
When I considered where I was going to go to college, that's definitely something I considered was how trans-friendly is the University of Iowa. And so I think that makes a big difference when students are considering where to go to college.
These single-user gender-inclusive restrooms really make our campus and help our campus be inclusive and safe and supportive to all of our community, as well as those who identify as trans or non-binary.
First, it was North Carolina, then it was Target. Now homeless shelters are the new front in the battle over transgender rights. TheHill.com reports that new proposed federal regulations would permit people to stay in homeless shelters based on their gender identity. In other words, if a man identifies as a woman, he would be allowed to stay at a women's shelter.
Over in West Africa, Nigeria's health authorities have launched a massive rollout of emergency polio vaccinations too. 2 new cases of that disease were reported last week, both of them in the war-ravaged northeastern state of Borno. Polio is a highly infectious disease. It invades the nervous system and it can cause irreversible paralysis.
A setback for Nigeria. The World Health Organization removed the country from its polio endemic list in September last year, and Nigeria has only a year to go till September 2017 to be declared polio-free. The government is blaming deteriorating healthcare system as a result of the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast. It's promised this vaccination drive will be robust and will expand beyond the country's borders.
The response plan includes 5 rounds of polio campaigns.
Terrorists really don't like efforts to get rid of polio. Take Nigeria, for example. 2 new cases of polio were reported in a country that hadn't seen it since 2014. Both were reported in the state of Borno, where Boko Haram is based and has reportedly blocked vaccination efforts in the past. Now the Nigerian government is putting about $29 million towards vaccinating children, but those vaccines might never reach the kids who need it most. Polio has also recently shown up in Afghanistan and Pakistan, areas with a terrorism presence. In those countries, terrorist groups have been known to block efforts to eradicate the disease.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has raised concerns over the worsening refugee situation in Uganda's West Nile districts. According to the World Refugee Agency, Uganda and the surrounding countries are straining under the weight of large numbers of displaced people and critically underfunded operations.
Hosting this large number of people in reception facilities that have limited capacity creates a number of problems. When you have that kind of overcrowding, it's important that we pay close attention to the potential for outbreaks of disease.
According to UNHCR, there are already some 940,000 refugees in the region and more are arriving daily. Uganda and Sudan have received an estimated 110,000 and 100,000 new arrivals respectively in 2016, together accounting for more than 90% of the new arrivals in the region this year. The World Refugee Body is concerned that even as the refugee population grows, funds to meet basic needs are becoming exhausted.
The United Nations has admitted for the first time to playing a role in Haiti's first ever cholera outbreak. Some 10,000 people died and hundreds of thousands were sickened. More were sickened. The disease is believed to have spread in 2010 while UN peacekeeping troops from Nepal, where cholera is endemic, were helping with the relief effort after the devastating earthquake.
Ukraine could soon impose martial law. President Petro Poroshenko would not rule out the option Thursday should fighting with pro-Russian separatists in the east worsen. The comments follow the deadliest month of fighting in a year. Many worry that the ceasefire agreement signed by Russia and Ukraine last February could fall apart. In a televised speech, Poroshenko said, quote, "If the situation escalates in the east and in Crimea, we don't rule out the possibilities that we will be forced to introduce martial law and announce a further mobilization."
Two Chinese Navy fleets have begun a confrontation drill in the Sea of Japan. One of the fleets includes the missile destroyer Xi'an, the missile frigate Hengshui, and supply ship Gaoyuhu. Its rival consists of several warships from the Navy's Donghai fleet. Now, foreign aircraft attempted surveillance during the drill, but were met with an appropriate response from the Chinese warships.
It came on the same day as the DPRK announcing the resumption of its plutonium production, but this live fire drill was actually scheduled to coincide with a different anniversary. The drill took place at exactly 5:04 p.m. local time to remember the exact time when South Korea fired back to the DPRK 1 year ago. This happened after the DPRK shelled an area just south of the demilitarized zone during an exchange of fire with the DPRK. Now, this incident occurred some days after Pyongyang did a surprise landmine attack on the southern part of the DMZ, seriously injuring 2 South Korean soldiers. So the military says today's drill was aimed at sending a message to the DPRK.
DPRK has slammed the South Korean military's largest ever live fire exercise. Thursday's drill was conducted to mark last year's inter-Korean artillery clash. DPRK's official newspaper Rodong Sinmun calls the drill a rash provocation and says it will result in Seoul paying a high price. It says the drill is bringing the peninsula into what it calls the worst state of crisis. The South Korean military held the exercise along the border where tensions are high. Seoul says the aim was to demonstrate its determination to counter Pyongyang's military provocations.
Militia are battling to oust Islamic State fighters from the city. The Operations Center for the forces loyal to Libya's government of national accord said another 20 of its fighters were wounded. The 2 attacks took place to the west of Sirte, near a center used to distribute supplies to pro-government.
At least 3 police officers were killed and about 100 people wounded by a car bomb at a police station in the eastern Turkish city of Elazig on Thursday.
The only field hospital in the Damascus suburb of Diriyah has been hit with napalm in a Syrian regime airstrike.
At least 3 people have been killed in protests in the town of Beni. Police have been using tear gas to disperse crowds. Now, demonstrations have been taking place for days now, and protesters have accused the government of failing to do enough to protect dozens of civilians. They were hacked to death over the weekend by suspected members of the Allied Democratic Forces rebel group. The DRC has been observing a period of national mourning. At least 1 protester has been shot by police during the demonstration in Beni, and 1 officer has been confirmed dead.
At first glance, Rachel Knutson and Lisa Rudquist look like they could be hairstylists. The boys sitting in their chairs wish it were that simple. They're not getting back-to-school haircuts here at Ladybugs. Instead, Rachel and Lisa are taking care of their head lice infestation.
When school lets out and they start a new sport or they go to a camp, we see an uptick in our business.
Yes, they're in the business of head lice removal.
It's all over.
Which is good news for Maple Grove mother Dee Dee Long.
We were notified this morning. My girls came home from camp on Sunday, and we found out that her bunkmate had lice this morning.
The little bugs are not easy to spot.
You can see those are the adults. This one right here is a little bit smaller, so that is a nymph, so that's like an adolescent bug. And then these teeny tiny little specks that you see in there are the nits.
It's a problem most commonly found in children between the ages of 3 to 11, but they're seeing it more now among older kids as well.
Just because the teenagers and the tweens, they like to take a lot of selfies and they put their heads together, they're having sleepovers and activities and sporting events.
Lice are certainly no fun, but a recent study found that Minnesota is one of 42 states that have so-called super lice.